Going to open our meeting. Thanks everyone for attending. I note, just to advise that we are recording the meeting and it is being streamed live on YouTube. There was a good reminder there to ask elected members to turn their mobile devices off, ideally, or put to silent is another option. We have all elected members here today. We just have a couple out of the room at the moment, but everyone is here. There's no leave of absences. I'll start with an acknowledgement to country. In recognition of the deep history and culture of this place, I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which the city of Hobart was built. I acknowledge the determination and resilience of the Palawa people of Tasmania who have survived invasion and dispossession and continue to maintain their identity, their culture and their rights. Minutes of our last meeting, 6th of September. Would someone like to move those?
Yes, so moved, Lord Mayor.
Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Sherlock. Any comments or changes? There being none, all those in favour say aye. Transfer of agenda items. Are there any items that are proposed to be transferred on the open or the closed? Oh, okay. There being none, we will move on. Items?
Yes. Yep, we'll move those, Lord Mayor. Oh, yep, we're not quite up to there.
Oh, it's later. Yep. Okay, no worries. Great. Communications from the Chair. Yes, I do have communications. I wanted to just report to the Chamber a couple of things that I've been doing. Capital City Lord Mayor's annual general meeting was held on the 8th of September 2021. It was resolved that the Lord Mayor of Perth would act as Chair of the Capital City Lord Mayors for 2022. The CCLM annual report was accepted and this will be circulated to all elected members on the hub. Some of the other items that were discussed at the meeting included the latest nighttime economy report, which is just about to be released and has some very interesting data, the role of cities and the national plan for COVID and federal election advocacy activity. The Asia Pacific Summit, I also participated in the Brisbane Lord Mayor's panel at the Asia Pacific Cities Summit via Zoom on 9th of September. And that was really around how cities are responding to the challenges of managing life during the pandemic and how to rebuild afterwards. Intergovernmental relations since our last meeting. The CEO and I met with the Premier last week and we talked about the Hobart City deal, the digital twin proposal, Hobart Port infrastructure upgrades, council engagement with state cabinet, hotel quarantine arrangements, and the Art and Reconciliation Park at Macquarie Point, including the proposal for a colonial era conflicts memorial. We imparted on the Premier that Council was doing a lot of work in planning for Hobart's future, that the Hobart City Deal implementation plan, the Greater Hobart Metro Plan and the Central Hobart Precinct Plan are all part of that work and focus. We also discussed the importance of the Tasport's Hobart Port infrastructure upgrades, which have been identified as by Infrastructure Australia as having priority status, and the importance of that being funded soon so we can continue to develop Hobart's Antarctic Gateway City status. As part of enhancing our intergovernmental relations, the Premier was agreeable to establishing an annual meeting of all elected members and members of the State Cabinet. The CEO will work with the Premier's Chief of Staff to identify a format and a date in 2022. The CEO and I also met with Andrew Wilkie last week and we talked about the digital twin proposal, which is seeking federal government support, other federal election proposals, including those coming up from the community, and to Mr Wilkie's office, and building better regions funding, which we've applied for and are waiting for news on. And we sought Andrew's support to advocate for these matters. Thank you. We now have Notification of council workshops. We have had no workshops, I don't think, except
Just had one.
We just had one, but it's not listed here, but we might be listed next week. Public question time, item 5. So we have a question from Ms. Louise Bloomfield. Ms. Bloomfield, would you like to come forward and ask your question?
You want me to simply ask the question? Can you hear me? Is this actually working? Yep. On the 7th of September, some weeks after it was noted that the plants had died, men in high vis came and uprooted all the dead trees and plants in Elizabeth Street parklets outside the Stag and other small businesses, replacing it with new shrubbery. This evokes a few vital questions. 1. Who was responsible for the maintenance of these plants? Was it the Hobart City Council or the benefiting businesses? 2. What is the cost associated with this refresh and who is paying for it? Hobart City Council or private enterprise? 3. Has any attempt been made to ascertain the real-time use of this seating, as it appears to be more unused than used? Are statistics available regarding this use? And 4, in light of the fact that this seating replaced car parks assessed by the local business client base who truly did spend, when is this parklet trial scheduled for removal? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bloomfield. I will provide a response to each of your 4 questions. So question 1, as the initiator of the Midtown Expanded Outdoor Dining Trial, the City of Hobart is responsible for the ongoing and more substantive maintenance. A number of traders have been very active in watering and maintaining planter boxes in line with the provisions of their Midtown outdoor dining permit, which require them to take all reasonable steps to keep the plants within their occupation area healthy and alive, including by watering. However, some plants, in particular the Risdon peppermint gum, have not thrived within the planter box environment, and so these have been removed and replaced. Excuse me. Our officers have written to all participating traders, reminding them of their responsibilities to maintain the planter boxes, and will continue to monitor this. The City will, however, supplement this weekly watering during the forthcoming late spring and summer months. Question 2, the cost of the recent standard maintenance and refresh work, which was undertaken by a contractor, totalled $2,175, and it was met by the City of Hobart. Question 3, a survey has been available on the City of Hobart Your Say page since May 2021, seeking community feedback on this project. The survey is promoted on site in Midtown via a QR code. The City will be undertaking a comprehensive survey of business operators and building owners following the upcoming summer trading period, and that will include questions on utilisation. The funding body for this project was the Department of State Growth, and they will also commission the provider Place Score to follow up on their their base place value assessment, which they did at the beginning of before the parklets went in. So that will be undertaken by the Department of State Growth. And question 4 is the current trial is due to conclude at the end of March 2022. Thank you, and we'll send a written copy of all of that to you. Thank you. Now, we had another question, but I think Mr. Daniels is away. You're reading Mr. Daniels' questions, great.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This question has been provided by Mr. Paul Daniels, who unfortunately wasn't able to be here this evening. Per council minutes dated May 20, 2019, the General Manager tabled a petition from Mr. Brian Corr requesting a poll of electors be held in relation to building heights. I note that the Hobart City Council had already commissioned and received a report from leading Tasmanian architect Mr. Lee Woolley back on the 3rd of September 2018. I also note that the Woolley report was highly publicised, both for its cost and findings in both social and printed media at the time. time. The process for an elector poll appears to require a petition for a public meeting, and within 30 days of that meeting is a second petition requesting the elector poll. Question 1. Can the Council provide the total direct and indirect costs associated with the TEC elector poll triggered by Mr Corr's petitions, including staffing costs associated with the elector poll and the public meeting of the 16th of April 2019? Question 2. Was Mr Corr advised and made aware of the Lee Woolley report at any time before the acceptance of the petition requesting the elector poll on the 4th of February 2019? 3. Once the TEC had conducted the elector poll and provided the Hobart City Council its report, what action was taken by Council? Was the elector poll report simply received and noted? 4. Has the Council historically taken any action on any previous elector poll? 5. In light of current financial circumstances, does the Council consider this a good use of ratepayers' funds? Will the Council lobby the State Government to seek changes to the process in which elector polls are able to be established, considering that in the past, polls have not produced any defined outcomes except the resulting cost burden to ratepayers? Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. So I have a response to question 1. The total costs associated with the elector poll regarding building heights was as follows. The elector poll was a cost of $118,516 and 13 cents. And the public meeting was $7,633 and 14 cents. It should be noted that the above costs do not capture staff costs other than the overtime for the public meeting, which is captured in this cost. The public meeting regarding the building heights was held in conjunction with a public meeting regarding the cable car. Question 2. It can be assumed that Mr Corr was aware of the Lee Woolley report, given that his petition submitted seeking a public meeting in February 2019 called for the Council to adopt the recommendations from 2018, which were the recommendations of the Lee Woolley report. Question 3. In accordance with its statutory obligations, at its meeting of 22 July 2019, the Council received and noted the results of the elector poll and resolved to refer it to the appropriate committee for consideration. The Council subsequently considered a report responding to the results of the elector poll at the City Planning Committee in August 2019. The Council ultimately made no resolution in relation to this matter, as the recommendation from City Planning was not adopted by the Council. Question 4. The most recent elector poll was conducted in conjunction with the 2007 local government election in relation to a process around the Tamar Valley pulp mill. In that case, Council resolved to provide the results of the elector poll to the relevant federal ministers and Tasmanian Premier, along with reviewing Council's investments in financial institutions associated with the proponents of the proposed pulp mill. Question 5. The Council has not formed a position on whether this represents a good use of ratepayers' funds. However, it is important to note that under the Local Government Act 1993, it is the right of members of the public to sign a petition to conduct a public meeting and ultimately an elector poll. And so the City of Hobart will ensure that it meets its statutory obligations in this regard. Question 6. The Council did write a submission on proposed changes and reform of the Local Government Act, and in that submission we did make recommendations around petitions, public meetings and elector polls as part of the Act. The General Manager wrote specifically in relation to this issue on 17th of June 2019, and a copy of that correspondence will be provided to you. Thank you, Mr Daniels. Okey-doke. So we are now moving on. Okay. Ms Elliott, would you like to come forward?
Thank you. Sorry for the late question on notice. As you're aware, the Council publishes a summary of planning and building data on its website. This information does not, however, tell the full picture, as it only contains information about applications that were approved. While more information is accessible in the Council's minutes and meeting recordings, which are publicly available, this information is weaved into these items, making it difficult to get an overview of the data and trends. The Council has already recognised the value of providing summary information, given the information on the approved applications is already available. A couple of weeks ago, I wrote to the Lord Mayor requesting that the scope of the summary information provided to the public be expanded so that a more comprehensive picture is easily accessible to the community. I have since received a response from the Director of Planning that this would not be possible due to resource constraints. Given the dire situation of Hobart's housing affordability, which is commonly acknowledged as being fundamentally due to an imbalance of supply and demand, I believe that the community deserves to know the full picture of what is happening when the Council acts as a planning authority. Every new home in our city is filtered through the tight net of the Council, and the decisions made around the table here have an undeniable impact on housing supply. Consistent with valuing transparency, I therefore ask the Council to consider providing the community with a fuller picture and commit to finding the resources needed to make this possible. Specifically, I ask the Council to provide the community with a cumulative summary of each occasion where the Council acts as a planning authority on all housing and hotel planning applications, including dwellings, multiple dwellings, visitor accommodation, change of use to visitor accommodation and parcels of land, which states the date of the Council's decision, the title of the application and the associated reference numbers, the number of dwellings and/or hotel rooms included in the application, what the recommendation the Council's planning officers have made, the votes cast by each elected member, so it is easily clear as to which members did and did not support the application, and the overall result of the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Elliott. I will take the question on notice and provide you with a written response in due course, and a copy of the response will also be published in a future Council agenda for the Council to receive and note. Thank you.
Lord Mayor, I've got lots of questions without notice as well. The first one's it's got three parts, and I'll send this to Mr Jackson when I've completed reading the first one out. One, is there a professional expectation by the Hobart City Council, whether it's legal and/or moral, or just politeness, the questions asked by members of the public are answered rather than just a response given? So the answers to the questions asked are answered. Second, has the Hobart City Council have a policy or policies to make sure that the communication is professional and not contain legal threats, as in the response to the questions asked, as an example that's published in our agenda tonight? Third part of this question without notice, should there be a checking process to make sure the above is adhered to, so as to avoid code of conduct complaints, which is quite expensive to Council? So that's the first. Would you like to make a comment on that? Take it without notice?
I'll take it.
Take it on notice.
Take it on notice.
Yeah, thank you. The second lot of questions, again, has got 4 parts. What processes of consultation were followed in cancelling the popular and important Christmas pageant event? It's the first part. Why wasn't the decision about this important event a full Council decision, considered there was time and of its importance? 3, considering that elected members were informed by a press release by the Lord Mayor, who has only 1 vote out of 12, what steps can be taken in future to make sure the decision is one of full Council? Part 4 of the question, why wasn't other options considered, such as happened in Adelaide, where they did have, they diverted their pageant to an oval? That's it. So what?
I think the CEO would like to respond.
I'd rather a full answer. It will. Thank you very much.
Sure, we'll take it on notice. Good, thank you. Are there any petitions?
No. No, Lord Mayor.
Okay. Supplementary items. There are 2 supplementary items.
I'll move those.
Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor,
Lord
seconded
Mayor.
by Councillor Sherlock. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 8 is indications of pecuniary and conflicts of interest. Do any elected members wish to indicate a pecuniary or a conflict of interest in any item that's appearing on the open council agenda? There being none, we will now move on to the City Planning Committee, and I note that the council is now acting as a planning authority. I invite the Chair of the City Planning Committee, Deputy Lord Mayor, to open item 9.1.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Item 9.1 is 339 Lena Valley Road and 30 Lumia Avenue, and 337 Lena Valley Road. It's planning approval sought for a subdivision.
Seconded by Councillor Barkas. Alderman Barkas.
Lord Mayor, this is an application that's came to City Planning Committee last week. It's for a small amount of land, a small triangle of land, which theoretically shouldn't be or can't be subdivided as part of this application, because it doesn't fulfil one of the 5 clauses in the relevant part of the planning scheme. It was felt by, I think, unanimously by the committee that this was probably more sensible to approve rather than fulfil the officer's recommendation for refusal. So that is what we have before us. There were no representations in relation to this. It's essentially a boundary adjustment, and there is a shed of the applicants in this land, which is actually on their neighbour's land. So it's relatively straightforward, and we felt as a committee that we should approve it.
Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 9.2 is 10 Selfs Point Road. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Yeah, so this is, I'll move this for partial demolition, alterations and extension, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Barkas.
Lord Mayor, this is extension to the sporting facilities, or the Bridge Club actually, which is located on council land. Again, there were no representations, and the committee felt that this was essentially what is internal alterations and a slight extension to the eastern end of the existing Bridge Association building to add approximately 100 square metres, so that they can accommodate more tables, more bridge tables to the existing 310 square metre footprint. So again, pretty straightforward, and I think it was unanimous from the committee to recommend for approval. So moved.
Thank you. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 10 is monthly planning statistics.
Yes, happy to move these monthly planning statistics, Lord Mayor. So move those, and you'll note that in the period
By Councillor Sherlock.
for the month of August, there were 62 planning permits issued, which might interest Ms Elliott, with the value of $12,028,000, and various single dwellings, multiple dwellings, extensions and to commercial properties, and one major project as part of that. So again, we are seeing a continued application and number of different applications coming before us and being approved. So moved.
Further discussion? I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously.
Have you-
5.1. We've never moved questions, I don't think. So I think I've just had advice, sorry, that we should move the responses.
So moved, Lord Mayor.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Briscoe. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 11 is monthly building statistics.
Yes, so I'll move the building statistics for the 1st of August to the 31st of August.
Seconded by Councillor Ewan. Any discussion? I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 12 is a motion from Councillor Ewan.
Thanks. Just like to move the motion that's on the books, that council officers produce a report on potential mechanisms and issues for ensuring that development applications that propose improved access facilities to meet the equal access requirements of the National Building Code are not singularly refused because of breaches in the Heritage Code of Council's planning schemes or the Historic Cultural Heritage Act. Thank you again, Neil, for helping out with the words.
Moved by Alderman Zuko.
No, second.
Seconded by Alderman Zuko. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I really
Lord Mayor.
commend this motion. It's been something that does come up from time to time, or quite often really, and access by everybody into our buildings, and particularly when there are modifications or changes to heritage buildings in particular should occur. I'd like to pose a question, because at the committee we did, and Councillor Ewan was there obviously to move that motion, but we did talk about other overlays and other things that we need to consider, access issues as well, and Mr. Noy might like to mention more of those. But I went and saw a recent outdoor setting, like an outdoor setting on Brook Street, where we just recently approved some outdoor seating, and I noticed that it's not really accessible to wheelchairs. So perhaps that, I don't know if that can be that kind of thing through you, Lord Mayor. Can that be picked up in this response? Is that appropriate, and are there other areas that we should be considering as well?
Yeah, Lord Mayor, look, I'd need to understand a little bit better the actual location, and maybe if we had the conversation outside of this discussion, because I think this is particularly specific around heritage issues. Whereas the issues that you're raising may be associated with standards that are required.
Building code.
Yes, thank you. I'm quite happy to take that offline, but I would like to think that we weren't causing more difficulties for accessibility to anything that we approve where that might occur. So.
Yes, look, and Alderman Zuko will agree with me. I don't think we've ever refused a development application that required disability access, and the examples I gave in the planning committee were even our ramp up to the town hall, the ramp over at the Mercury building, and even most recently in Melville Street, which I think the deputy voted against it, but the council officers recommended refusal because of heritage, but the council, in its wisdom, voted for that lift, so to make that building accessible and usable. So I think there's no examples that I can think of, unless the director can point out, that we've ever knocked back a development that gives better access or full access. What's interesting, we'll be seeing the High Court case at the moment where a disability advocate is arguing that it should have been better access at the new Parliament Square development. That will be interesting to see whether just only having one disability access lift, whether in fact you need more. So if there are 3 staircases, then you might have to have 3 lifts there, but it'll be interesting to see in the next few months when they hand down that decision whether in fact when the developers come before us, whether they do require more than just one access for disability or lift for people with disability. I do note, we offered only an incentive for people on bikes to go to Salamanca a week ago. That seems to be discriminatory for people who are in wheelchairs, people who are too old to get on a bike, or people who've never been on a bike. So I will be asking a question in the appropriate committee, how many vouchers we gave out for people who turned up to bike, and are we breaking the law because we're offering something we can't offer to the whole public. So interesting to see the process behind that too. So whilst we can say that this motion is very good and I support it, I don't think there's any example that we've knocked back a development that increased the disability access. And I think other processes the council have to look to as well, and including that if you turn up on a bike to Salamanca, you get an incentive or a reward.
May I commend Councillor Ewing on this. This arose from an issue that we had under planning a few weeks ago, and it's quite obvious that Councillor Ewing listened to that debate very carefully and has acted, and I actually commend Councillor Ewing for doing so. I think we're sort of starting to sort of deviate outside of what this is all about. This is about a building that may be heritage listed or could be heritage listed that may be precluded from any changes so that it complies with the DDA laws. And it may be refused because there may be changes required on that building that could take it away from the heritage aspects of the building. This is about heritage. It's not about the DDA laws. DDA laws override
State laws.
The general laws. DDA laws are actually under the Building Code of Australia. So, Lord Mayor, this is about the council officers having the ability to work under the planning scheme and look at the DDA at the application to say, okay, how can we deliver to this heritage building the required DDA laws so that everyone has equal access and opportunity. So, Lord Mayor, I think trying to sort of put anything else into this takes away from what it's about. And in one way, I'm glad that no one's moved any amendments, because I wouldn't have accepted any amendments other than a report based on this, because this is very, very specific, and I believe the officers need to work very carefully with this to find a solution, because I don't think it's going to be easy. But yes, Mr. Noy, we'll just take away a few more hairs off your head, because I don't believe it's going to be easy. But you never know. Our officers will look at it and maybe look at the way we approved that previous application and how it could be worked into, so that we don't have to sit there and see another refusal for a application because the building may have been heritage listed. At the end of the day, Lord Mayor, the last thing we wanted to see is people that couldn't visit Town Hall because it would have been against the Heritage Act to have a ramp there. I gave that example a few weeks ago, and hopefully this will get through unanimously.
Yeah, I'll put that. All those. Oh, Alderman Brackus.
Just briefly, Lord Mayor. Look, I'd also commend the motion. I think it was noted. Well, I did note in the committee when this discussion came about that I think the heritage provisions in the planning scheme do allow, they do have, there should be no loss of heritage or significant heritage unless A, B, C, D are met, whether it's a community benefit or an economic benefit greater than the value of the heritage. And I think it'd be very easy to insert another provision there. And just to jump off what Alderman Zurko said, I think there's an opportunity to put in a lot of other provisions in there that I think would be beneficial to the city, to allow appropriate development on heritage spaces. But as Alderman Zurko said, I think this motion rightfully stands on its own. I think it's a good motion. I think any other considerations should be put forward in future motions and not butcher this one, because I think this is actually a commendable motion, and it seems that it's going to get unanimous approval. I think that's a great thing.
Want to sum up, Councillor Ewan?
No, thanks, all good. Let's go.
The motion, all those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. We're moving on to the Finance and Governance Committee, item 13, the Patient Assisted Travel Scheme. Alderman Zuko.
Yes, Lord Mayor, this is a patient assisted travel scheme. Just some changes to the way we operate. It's to implement a flat fee of $5 for one car for the Royal Hobart Hospital, Hobart Private, and other facilities, and for specific reasons for assistance. And I believe this gives opportunity should there be any other organisations as well. I so move.
Seconded by Alderman Thomas. Any discussion?
Just to start with a question, Lord Mayor.
Yep.
If future organisations wanted to go onto this program, would that have to come before council, or is that up to discretion of either the CEO or relevant directors?
Sorry?
Peter?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Carr.
Through you, Lord Mayor, in recommendation number 5, suggests that delegation be provided to the manager of Smart Sustainable City.
Thank you for that. Look, I'd commend this. I think this is something that came around from the discussions and the support that the council provided to Ronald McDonald House. And the Deputy Lord Mayor, even when this was discussed, suggested that, you know, as worthy as Ronald McDonald House was for the support that we provided, there are a number of other organisations that provide much needed charitable services to people in need and people that need support during difficult times. So I think it's great that that conversation around Ronald McDonald House has led to a broader policy to support those groups that support others. So I think it's a terrific thing the council is doing. I think it's a worthy use of our resources to help support those organisations.
The discussion. Can I just ask a question? Sorry, I didn't attend the meeting. Have you got any idea, or did the report outline how much you expect there to be take up? How much of this is presumably mainly the Argyle Street car park?
Through you, Lord Mayor, the purpose of the program is to really consolidate 7 other programs that we currently have in place. The expected dollar value, which would be treated as a grant in the annual reports, would be around $60,000 based on the amount or use of the service.
Okey-dokey. Great, thank you. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 14.
Lord Mayor, a review of rates, late payment fees and credit card payment limits.
Deputy Lord Mayor.
There's going to be a $3,000 maximum payment limit per property per instalment for council rates by credit card. And also reconfirm its practice to charge 3% penalty on overdue rates. Lord Mayor, when you actually look at what the Hobart City Council charges and some other councils across the state, we are actually quite reasonable. There are some councils charging quite a considerable more. Some don't charge at all, but it's 3%, which is I find not over the top. I so move, Lord Mayor.
Any discussion? No. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Moving on to the supplementary items, which is item 16.
I'll move the item, but wonder if we can have some response.
Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Sherlock. Would you want to introduce the item, CEO? It's a report from yourself.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As outlined in the report, the intention here is to resolve a number of issues through initially looking at a temporary hold on parking metres in the High Street strip in North Hobart, and the details of the address are outlined in the body of the report. Importantly, though, this report seeks to look at a range of issues associated with North Hobart. So we recognise that an element of this report responds specifically to the issue of parking, and certainly the issue that was raised via the petition that was tabled at Council some weeks ago now. The intent is to take a holistic approach to looking at issues in North Hobart, not necessarily things that aren't working, but obviously building on the strengths of North Hobart and really giving that precinct an uplift. Importantly, Lord Mayor, the report also talks about the development of a North Hobart precinct plan, and this is really intended to guide the future development of North Hobart into the future. This is really within the context of Hobart as a growing city, and ensuring that North Hobart's really well placed to do that in a way that is respectful of the current character, but also ensuring that we've got a good framework for any future development to occur within that precinct, and that will necessarily involve looking at elements of urban design and so on and so forth, including the provision of open space and other such things regarding its land use and also commercial activity within that precinct as well. Lord Mayor, the report also covers off on the digital signs, and that's really about ensuring that people understand where car parking is available. And Lord Mayor, it also talks about those additional car parking sites that we've already got council resolution to realise, and we're actively working on those as we speak, and that is covered off in the report as well, albeit they are commercial arrangements at this stage that one is in the process of being finalised in terms of negotiation. The other, as I said, has been a former resolution of the council that we're now actioning. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Further discussion? Councillor Dutta.
Through you, Chair, just clarification on recommendation 3. With regards to the timing of it, it's an open-ended one. Is it possible to suggest that we have a progress report, say mid-December? That's, I'm just asking a question. And the other question I have on that particular recommendation is that the reports be provided to council. Now, how will this be provided to council, and will the public have access to this, which I think is an important thing, that they are also taken together with this whole report exposure?
CEO.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Just in relation to the first question, I have indicated in the officer report that we will be providing sort of regular progress reports to council. So, Lord Mayor, I'm happy for that first one to be in December, and that will report on a range of activities underway in North Hobart and an update on how they're going, including monitoring of the parking situation, of course. And it's my intent, Lord Mayor, that we'll be providing a number of progress reports, not just on North Hobart, but also on activities occurring in the other precincts across the city as well. I think for completeness, it's important that council has line of sight on those. In relation to the second question involving the way that this report will be provided, the report will be provided as part of the written agenda, as is the case usually with reports coming from council officers, so it will be published in the agenda as per the usual process, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Alderman Briscoe.
Yes, through you, Lord Mayor, I'd like to thank the CEO for such a good report. I think it strikes the right balance between positive and addressing some of the concerns of the North Hobart traders up there, and also gives some the positive things that we're doing, including the upgrade of the Swan Park there, Swan Street Park, which I think will revitalise a bit of North Hobart. I'm particularly think it's a good initiative to do a marketing campaign for North Hobart, because North Hobart has had a lot of negative things said about it regarding parking, which I believe a lot of it is truth, I went there today just to make sure that my lived experience was matched or didn't match the report. It didn't seem like, if I had done it 2 years ago at around about lunchtime, it would have been a lot more vibrant, a lot more cars, there were a lot of empty spaces. What I notice about my social group is they drive and they say, oh no, we're not going to park in North Hobart, we're going on to Moona to have a coffee and so and so. So that's not picked up by any data by our data collecting experts at council. I will drive through North Hobart because I don't want to get fined. I believe the fines and parking fees for North Hobart amount to $100,000 a year, and it's good that the report does indicate that we are considering reinvesting that money back if it's adopted tonight, reinvesting in the precinct. And I think it's a good idea. So I think what I'm saying is that I will support the motion tonight, and I think, as I said, the report was positive, indicated good things are going to happen, two particularly good things: the Swan Street Park and the development of a marketing campaign. And I think the hooding of the meters is a good first move, and it will help the traders there have a more positive outlook about the council are listening. It's taken a while since the petition was brought before council, and that's a bit of a worry. There are also a number of empty buildings in North Hobart which I've never seen before. I've never seen empty buildings in North Hobart. They're usually empty shops. They're usually picked up like immediately. So that's a sign that something is happening, and maybe one of the aldermen who's got a great deal of experience in North Hobart may be able to share some of his things. But I think it's the timely report and actions right at this moment for one of the important restaurant strip of Hobart. It is iconic. It had the first artwork on the street, had the first extended pavements and nice pedestrian-friendly crossings there. And I remember when the roundabout was installed was to slow down the traffic, and that's worked. So I think it's time that we reinvested in North Hobart, and I think the recommendations that have been suggested by the CEO are spot on.
Further discussion? Alderman Coates, or Councillor Coates, sorry.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I think it's a very good report. I don't, however, think it's a great report. I'm a little bit disappointed to see the recommendation about hooding. And I say that in so much as, if I look at the provenance of this, is that an action was taken. The community, unfortunately, had a very detrimental impact, and we received a petition. And the petition's in that report, it says what it called for. It called for the removal. And look, I, like no doubt many others, I went up to see for myself, to investigate, to look at North Hobart, to talk to the traders, to go into their businesses, to talk to them, and to try and understand where they were coming from, and in some ways how it was that we had 1,200 residents of our city sign a petition calling on us to act, and specifically calling on us to take an action, which is to remove those meters. And I can only describe the reactions haunting. These are people who have had the rug pulled from under them, you know, their businesses severely impacted. I remember speaking to one trader, and he openly said he said it just wasn't feasible anymore. I spoke to another one who said that he was genuinely thinking, look, I'm going to make, there was an Indian restaurant, he said I was openly looking at moving up to New Norfolk. He said, this just isn't the place for me anymore. And you sort of think, if it's meant to be a restaurant precinct, and restaurateurs are looking at moving out, you know, what are we doing? What are we doing with this space? And look, I appreciate that hooding it buys us time, but in my view, that petition called on us to take a very strong action, and this unfortunately isn't it. And look, in some ways I appreciate hooding it's very cheap, very effective, very quick, but maybe it'd be best if it wasn't so cheap and quick to be able to install these damn things. we may not have put them in the first place. But look, that said, there's some very good stuff in here. I think it is a good response. I don't necessarily think it's a great response. I would have liked to have seen these things taken out. I mean, I do feel now, if you're a business owner there and you're thinking, look, maybe I will invest in my fit out for my shop. You know, I think things are coming back and maybe I will take that plunge and take a risk. Well, they're going to be looking out and going, what's easy to go on's easy to go off. What happens? What then? You're going to have businesses that their lease is going to be coming up and they're thinking, what do I do? You know, I think, unfortunately, this is a little bit of a let's kick the can down the road. I would have liked us to have ultimately responded to that petition with what the petition asked for. But that said, I think this is definitely a step in the right direction. But look, I just hope that, but ultimately, you know, I guess we can reflect that if we make these changes, sometimes they will have detrimental impact, and so we need to be very careful when we are making these sort of decisions. But look, overall, I think there's some very good stuff in here. I think it's a good report, but I don't think it's a great report. I personally would have liked to have seen us respond positively to the action they were asking for, albeit, hopefully, by putting the hoods on, it does give us confidence, it does get the trade back to North Hobart, and you know, hopefully we can ultimately end up at a good place. Thanks.
Further discussion? No further discussion?
Yeah.
Deputy, sorry, Alderman Thomas.
Look, I understand, it's probably a question through you to the Director. What's the cost of installing in the first place, the meters?
Mr. Carr.
Lord Mayor, the rough cost was around $200,000, but that extended right across the precinct. It wasn't specific to the meters on Elizabeth Street, so specific to whichever area we're referring to.
Probably the main thoroughfare. Just all right. Look, I do take on board what Councillor Coates is saying, but the words are really carefully been chosen here in number 3. Authorise the CEO to hood. I guess you're not going to go and do it, but authorise the CEO for someone to go and hood the parking meters in Elizabeth Street between Burnett and Federal Street, North Hobart, until such time as other supports to enhance the North Hobart precinct are achieved, in consultation with traders, landowners and residents, with progress reports provide to council key milestones. So as long as we get the impact around the words, what is it that enhances the North Hobart precinct? If we get that right, then it's entirely appropriate to leave these installations in there at the moment, whilst we've expended, we don't know, but somewhere between 100 and 200,000 presumably for that main strip. We start ripping them out now and putting them somewhere up at Cleary's gates, we'll probably never see, we may not want to see them again, but the reality is they're there now. It's a simplistic, easy way to deal with it at the moment. I'm really excited that you've actually come forward with a report such as this. It actually opens up that dialogue, which appears to have been broken to a certain extent, and as long as we can, it is really important that we get some form of consensus through you to the CEO on what is an enhancement. And I'd really be interested in what Alderman Zuko has to say, because enhancing this area, is it enhancing it, taking it back to what it was in the vibrancy sense in terms of, and COVID has affected where the people go out and what they spend and where they go. And certainly Moona has taken on a bit of a resurgence out there with 3 or 4 restaurants opening up in recent times. But if we can catch up, and I don't want to lose this impact, the word enhance is going to be the critical issue here. What is it going to take to get a consensus, a reasonable consensus either around this table, around the community, as what is it that we need to enhance the North Hobart area? And it's a really, it's a broad term. I don't know what it means, but I know that we're going to need to find some form of consensus between a lot of people who've got the best intentions at heart.
The discussion, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I really welcome the CEO's report. I think this brings together so many of those things that we've been, for various reasons, perhaps slow to act with the benefits that we could bring to North Hobart. I think also, I certainly hear the concerns of the traders and I've spoken to many of them in relation to their concerns, and we know that this has been a fairly divisive issue. So what we have out of the petition is a response, a very, very swift response, given the complexities that we have before us. And as Alderman Briscoe said, the work to begin on the plans for the Swan Street Park, I think that's a really important part of that streetscape that needs to be enhanced. Getting that work from all of that public consultation that did occur during 2020 and adding that to more recent surveying, and really coming up with an overall plan. And this is a prioritisation for North Hobart, which it hasn't seen, as Alderman Briscoe said, for quite some time. I'd like to remind Alderman Briscoe that there were quite a number of North Hobart was looking very empty and vacant, with a lot of shops vacant many, many years ago. I remember it was when there was the 10 days on the island many years ago, but there was an exhibition in trying to enliven some of those empty street fronts and shop fronts. So we saw some great collaborations with Patrick Hall and Margaret Scott and various artists who really put together some shine over North Hobart when it was looking its probably least favoured. But at the moment, it is still vibrant, it is still buoyant. We're in the middle of a pandemic, so we know full well that there are many reasons why we have had some slowing in trade. It's to be expected at this time. So whilst we haven't got all of the answers before us, I think this report goes a long way to addressing some of the problems that not only the shop owners have, but also residents in the area. So I commend the report.
Lord Mayor, I wasn't going to say anything, but I've been asked twice by elected members to directed things at me as if I've got to speak. But I do want to just make a point. The question was asked is, what is it going to take? It's going to take this council supporting this motion and to give give the CEO the role that we want the CEO to perform in respect of this. I believe it is a very good report. So I just ask all elected members to support the motion, support the CEO, give the authorisation to the CEO so the CEO can do the work that is needed, whether it's in North Hobart or whether it's in Sandy Bay, whether it's in CBD. At this point in time, we're talking about North Hobart. Just one thing, I just want to assist Mr Carr there. It wasn't $250,000 for the parking meters. It was actually $250,000 that encompassed the sensors as well. Is that correct, Mr Carr? Right. The sensors aren't the issue. So the $250,000 is not that badly spent because the sensors actually do the work that's needed. It's the actual meters, which would have been the minimal component of the installation, because sensors actually are far better than meters. Sensors actually give parking attendants, whether there's a meter or not, if a car space has been overused, even if there's no meter there. Thank you.
Councillor Sherlock.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I would also like to say thank you for this particular report. I think it's thorough in many regards, and I think it's really, really wonderful that we did wait the extra 3 weeks to have this report that outlines various different things that are beneficial to the community in terms of everything that's been outlined there from recommendation 1 to 8. It's very thorough, and I think those 3 weeks have really helped to define more what we're going to actually do for the precinct, and I think that's a benefit and a real positive for the community that we waited this long. Thank you.
Further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 17. This is a memo from the CEO following on from a workshop that was held a couple of weeks ago, I think it was. 16th of August, was it? 16th of August we had a elected member workshop to discuss the state government's plans for the 5th lane and Davey and Macquarie Street, and then the CEO's written this report to... Should I say anything further?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I guess just to outline again to Council that the purpose of this is really to sort of provide an outline of the key principles that will really drive the submission back to state growth on this matter. And this was coming out of the workshop with elected members, as Lord Mayor's outlined some weeks ago now. It's important that Council takes this opportunity to reflect on those sort of key principles, if you like, and also that we actually do provide a submission outlining what we think needs to occur going forward as it relates to the design of the southern projects, given they've already been announced. Lord Mayor, thank you.
Further discussion? Councillor Coates.
Probably need somebody to move it.
Moved by Councillor Sherlock, seconded by Councillor Harvey. Councillor Coates.
Thank you. I'll speak to the move motion. Look, I guess initially just a question, and look, I'm reading what's in here, and I understand where it's coming from, but I must have attended a separate workshop because through you, Chair. But my understanding is that initially they wanted to put the extra lane in going into the city, and then at our most recent update workshop, they advised us that all the modelling they'd done came back that it just wasn't feasible and wouldn't work. And so it appears weird that we're then going to put forward Council's submission to include that we do want that in when we heard the best evidence that it just wasn't working. I mean, I guess I'd like to understand why we wouldn't take on board the evidence that we were given.
Is that a question? I don't think we got the modelling ever, but it may be a question for the CEO.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And if I might, we've been provided with all available information that was able to be shared with officers, and that's why we're still in the process of really refining the submission to ensure that it takes into account all of what we've been advised. And I just, again, would reiterate that these are projects that have been announced already by government, and essentially our submission will really be kind of along the lines of the initial presentation that was provided to Council prior to my arrival here, I think dated back some months now, to really ensure that the public transport elements of this were uplifted and, you know, I guess realised in the way for which it was intended as part of the Hobart City deal. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Further discussion, Alderman Briscoe.
Yes. Look. I thought that this is a good summary of what. So I was at the workshop. I know. So I had, but I sense that I think this is not the final submission to Department of Growth, but you've got to spell out. This is going out to the public. The original design provided by the state government indicated the lane, the extra lane for buses, or C3 or T3 T3. I always call it C3 anyway. T3 goes to Elizabeth Street. So that really is the original design provided, and it marked lanes to Elizabeth Street because they are having bus to, is it to Mole Street or Ispahan Street. So really, we've just got to make sure when we do the submission is that we really clearly lay out we want it to Elizabeth Street. You know, they will probably come back and say and quote the evidence that they did demonstrate, but it was more rhetoric in a lot of regards, because as soon as you try and drill down to what's stopping you, they would go, they would, what do you put mud all around it, so you didn't get a clear idea of what they were talking about. At times I agreed with them, but at times I thought they're just throwing things in here that's not answering the question. So I believe the bus lane or the T3 lane should go to Elizabeth Street, otherwise it will not have any benefit at all to the city. So I agree with the CEO's thing there, as long as you say really clearly, original design that indicated the bus T3 lane would go to Elizabeth Street. Simple as that.
Further discussion? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, this is obviously a submission that the council is doing, but I stand to just remind the council of the significant hardship that the Dunern Road residents have really been suffering as a result of some very clumsy public consultation in relation to that widening of the fifth lane, or putting in the fifth lane. It happened just literally the eve of going into caretaker mode, and then they were left hanging as to know what the outcome might be. So whilst it might be a done deal, I think it's really it's incumbent on us as elected members, and we've certainly, some of us have had the opportunity to meet, or many of us have had the opportunity to meet with residents of Dunern Road. So I suggest that we add an amendment that the council note the concerns that Dunern Road residents have in relation to compulsory acquisition of their properties, and strongly argue that the state government seek various solutions to that traffic management before housing is demolished.
Seconded by Alderman Thomas. So is that a
It's make noting. It's really make a note as part of.
So it'd be the submission includes this particular.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Further discussion on the amendment or the substantive?
I thought when we had that workshop we were talking about a small group going to meet the government to see if there's any way that it would reconsider this ridiculous idea with all the crosses when you come down the southern outlet. I don't think this is a disaster, this particular clumsy approach to traffic management in that area. It's taken into no account. It's 3 years ago, it's before COVID, it's before working from home, it's before there's been changes to settlement patterns. I thought that realistically we weren't just going to fall over and let this thing trammel the rights of those. It's not just 17 homes; it's the ones right next door to the 17. It's it's adjacent properties, but we have not seen a proper cost-benefit analysis of economic activity being impelled and propelled in the Kingston area, which would alleviate the need for this monstrosity to start with. There's an acceptance by the government when it met with the council that it didn't handle the consultation process as well as it might. And whether or not we put this submission in, I think it should have the very strong caveat that government reconsider what it's doing in the light of 4 years' worth of experience of significant changes to the the needs of the communities that are affected by it, particularly what could be done in the Kingston area, which is going to have, we saw in the proposed population increases, 10,000 more people by 2034. Now that 10,000 people will by itself create a whole heap of new industries, a whole heap of new activity. We've seen nothing where the government's looked at proper high-speed ferries. We've seen no proper attempt here by the government to justify this decision 4 years after it started. And we do know the costs have blown out, and we do know that the citizens are outraged by it. And I think on behalf of the city, we shouldn't be falling over on this one. We should be out in force trying to stop this happening.
So, Alderman Thomas, do you feel that your concerns, though, are captured in the existing amendment?
Well, they certainly help. They certainly help.
Again.
Lord Mayor, none of
Councillor
us are
Harvey.
falling over as far as I'm concerned. So, I think putting in a thorough submission is really important, and that submission will include all of the other points that maybe haven't been made within the state government's propositions. I think we need to be talking about moving into the future of how we want to see transport in Hobart. So our response, I think, will be insightful for the state government as well about how we perceive transport coming to and through Hobart. So I'm looking forward to a really detailed submission that helps us look at all the options that haven't seriously been considered and the rollout of those ahead of major construction works on the southern outlet. So I'm quite confident that we'll end up with a decent submission here based on conversations we've had at our workshops and things, not necessarily with the state government, but there's been great ideas from everybody around the table at various points in time, including the park and ride discussion, which we've all been supportive of and talking about for a number of years now. So these things hopefully will be included and hopefully play an influencing factor in how we move forward on this.
Okay, further discussion. Alderman Zuko.
Yeah, look, I'm going to put my 20 cents worth in. Lord Mayor, I recall our discussion at the workshop. I think, and Alderman Thomas is very correct. We did sort of talk about a delegation going to see the Minister, and hopefully that the Deputy might take that on board in her amendment, and the seconder to have a delegation go meet the Minister and discuss all the issues across the board. And I think, as I said in the workshop, Lord Mayor, we need more dialogue with the government. We used to have quite regular meetings, probably I think once a year it was, where we got together and discussed a range of issues, and I'd like to see that return. So maybe this could be the first step in that happening again. So I can move an amendment, but I don't want to see another amendment. If the Deputy will consider accepting that in that we also form a small delegation. I don't think we need to worry about names at this point in time. Hopefully, it's the Lord Mayor, the Deputy and a couple of other people. That's about it. I think 2 more people's enough.
So what was the other part?
That a delegation seek a meeting with the Minister.
At the appropriate time.
Discuss the submission.
Yeah, I thought there was another part to that though, but anyway, that's okay.
No, just to discuss the submissions.
That's all right.
Okay, so,
who was it? You?
so Alderman Thomas, are you happy with that inclusion?
Yeah, as long as there's emphasis, I think we can pick it up.
Okay. All right, Councillor Sherlock.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Look, I would like to agree with Alderman Thomas on this, and I don't think we have enough teeth within that amendment that actually makes the point with regards to the residents who feel very much sort of not in a very good place, many of them, so to speak. And I don't think that, I don't really agree with this particular our submission at all, because I don't think it has enough teeth with regards to supporting the residents that are suffering at the moment with regards to that lane. And that's all I'd like to say. Thanks, Lord.
We might just read out the...
Could I just make a comment? I have spoke, but I'm talking to the amendment.
Yep.
sort of. I don't know how many other people got holiday homes or residents on the Eastern Shore, but at my holiday house on the Eastern Shore, I got a letter asking for any consultation about the proposal. So they're actually going from no consultation to presumably whole of Hobart consultation. Now, anyone who travels through Hobart will love an extra lane, presumably, and so just be aware that they've actually consulted, they are attempting to consult a huge area now.
Okay, so if we could just read out Deputy Lord Mayor's amendment again.
Through you, Lord Mayor, the council, as part of council submission, the concerns of the Dunearn Road residents whose properties may be compulsorily acquired and strongly argue the state government seek various solutions to traffic before any housing is demolished, and that a small delegation seek a meeting with the Minister to discuss the submission at the appropriate time.
That so I think it was the council note the concerns, was it?
That's right.
Okay, so any further discussion? Okay, I'll put the amendment first. All those in favour of the amendment say aye. Aye. Against say no. Aye. Show of hands, all those in favour?
Alderman Zuko, Alderman Sexton, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Dutta, Councillor Sherlock, Councillor Coates, Councillor Ewan, Alderman Thomas, Alderman Briscoe, Deputy Lord Mayor and the Lord Mayor.
Against?
Alderman Barakis. And it's carried, Lord Mayor, 11 votes to 1.
And now the substantive motion as amended. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Show of hands.
Alderman Zuko, Alderman Sexton, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Dutta, Councillor Ewan, Alderman Barakis, Alderman Thomas, Alderman Briscoe, the Deputy Lord Mayor and the Lord Mayor.
Against?
Councillor Sherlock and Councillor Coates. It's carried, Lord Mayor, 10 votes to 2.
Okie doke. So that brings to a close the open portion of our
Move
meeting.
close, Lord Mayor.
Moved by Alderman Zuko, seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say